Donald Trump is assembling his team, and he's made a few controversial picks. Matt Gaetz, maybe we'll talk about in another video, but one of the most controversial is RFK. And I want to get a sense of who he is, what does he believe, because he has some pretty insane views. So let's get straight into the video.
Now, let's get a bit more on our main story, the backlash that we've seen over Donald Trump's nomination as Health Secretary. BBC Verify's Merlin Thomas looks now at the controversial claims he's made in the past.
As Donald Trump prepares to enter the White House, those he chooses to bring with him will have an impact on millions of Americans. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been nominated as Donald Trump's Health Secretary in his second presidential term. This is what Trump said about Rfk Jr. in his victory speech.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he came in, and he's going to help make America healthy again.
Rfk Jr. is an environmental lawyer and part of the Kennedy dynasty. He's been a vaccine skeptic for nearly 2 decades and has shared misinformation on a range of public health issues. Now, one of his main false claims, repeated in a 2023 interview with Fox News, was that autism comes from vaccines. Multiple studies across many countries have concluded there is no link between vaccines and autism. Rfk Jr. has denied on several occasions that he is anti-vaccination and says he has had his children vaccinated.
I have never been anti-vax. I have never told the public avoid vaccination.
And in an interview after this election, he said he didn't want to take vaccines away, but that people should have the best information so they can make informed choices. During the pandemic...
This is deeply ironic, quoting a famously debunked study from the late 90s that has really done massive damage in the optics of vaccines and trust in medical science and pharmaceutical companies. And yes, there's many questions to be asked, but they have to be data-driven. This time of conspiracy theories where misinformation, distorted facts and studies, we live in a dangerous time, because if a figure like this is going to start to undermine medical science, it's a really slippery slope.
Rfk Jr. was also a critic of restrictions to limit the spread of COVID-19. He also spread misinformation by telling media that COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. These claims are false. Health specialists have said the virus didn't target any specific ethnic group, and the number of COVID cases had more to do with larger or intergenerational households. Rfk Jr. has also long campaigned against fluoridated water. Now, fluoride, a naturally occurring mineral, is added to water supplies in many countries, and it's long been recognized to protect teeth against decay. In his post on X, Rfk Jr. said fluoride is associated with several health issues, including arthritis, bone cancer, and neurodevelopmental disorders. But experts we spoke to say the research he cites doesn't relate to the very low levels of fluoride in drinking water. Now, the big question is whether his appointment will be approved by the Senate, and if so, how will Rfk Jr. govern?
Now, let's get a bit more on...
The fluoride is a massive conspiracy theory that goes back decades, and it's kind of the idea that it calcifies the pineal gland. There's no evidence of this. Again, he is so conspiracy-brained and paranoid. It's astonishing. He has insane beliefs. So let's go on to the sexual assault claims against him from the late 90s.
Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been denied a debate appearance and is struggling to get supporters to dig in deep for donations. Despite recent pitfalls, though, he's still battling to get his name on ballots across the country. CBS News has confirmed so far he's only done so in 6 states. And now, a new report from Vanity Fair is leveling a range of new allegations about his conduct. The author of that article, Joe Hagan, joins us now. He's a special correspondent for Vanity Fair. Joe, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Really stunning reporting here. I want to talk about this sexual assault allegation against RFK Jr., which he did not deny when asked about it today. Tell us about how, what you are learning about this, what you found.
Yeah. Well, I began this reporting about 2 months ago, and I started to hear, whispers of this kind of thing, and reached this woman who had been through a long process of trying to decide whether she wanted to come forward. As you can imagine, requires a lot of guts to come on the record and talk about things like this in public against a figure like Bobby Kennedy, who's a powerful man from a powerful family. And today, as you just pointed out, those allegations came out. She was a babysitter for him in 1999, 1998. And he made some advances on her, unwanted advances on her, groped her, she says. She recorded some of this in a diary that was concurrent with the Times. Now, he was asked about it point blank today, and he said he had no comment on it, and also made some other comments that, he's no church boy, and what he did in his youth, he's got skeletons in his closet, he said. Well, he was 45 at the time of these allegations, which sort of post youth, as far as I can tell. But so he's not said anything about him. He hasn't expanded on it. He hasn't rebutted it.
Yeah, not a denial there in the least. I'm curious, too, in your reporting, I mean, how much does the Kennedy family know about this candidate's conduct? I mean, it was striking, obviously, earlier this year. Lots of members of the Kennedy family made a point to endorse Joe Biden. But what have you found?
Well, the family is well aware of a history that has also been reported elsewhere, and which I recorded in my piece. That he, had various affairs over the years. That during the time he was married to his second wife, and some of his purported diaries leaked out into the press a few years ago, and they're aware of it. They're aware of a lot of his behaviors and pathologies, in which some of them were described to me by family members. But there's a really interesting quote in my piece where I asked somebody very close to the family, I said, why won't the family be more public about what they know about him? And the answer was that, if you start to unravel the problems with Bobby Kennedy Jr., you may unravel the whole family tapestry. And so, the mythology of the Kennedys is still a thing that they protect, very strongly. And that's why it's so painful for them to have to criticize him publicly in the ways they do.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Joe. I mean, I think a lot of people also obviously knew him for his name and also have known him for a while for promoting these, anti-vaccine claims. I'm curious what you found the impact of that has been.
Well, that was, concurrently with a lot of the things I'm writing about, including the assault allegation. He went through a period of slowly breaking away from the environmental movement that he had made his name on. He was the face of some very progressive climate focused groups like River Keepers and NRDC, the National Resource Defense Council. And as he began to make these claims, they began to step away from him because these were, not science-based claims, and they were science-based organizations. And by 2014, he'd broken with a couple of these groups, and after he met with Trump in 2017, Riverkeeper stepped away from his as well, and that sort of it's a breaking point. And ever since then, he's embraced the anti-vax movement as his primary sort of crusade.
Right. Well, Joe Hagan, thank you so much for your time and reporting. We encourage everybody to read your piece out in Vanity Fair. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So it's interesting, his reputation. We know Donald Trump has had numerous allegations against him, 26 at least, and he claims to want to protect women. This is one of my big problems with this decision. Obviously, the public health concerns, but the fact that this is just set a precedent and they don't care about women. This is the problem on the right. They claim to want to protect women, the trans debate, and then they have Trump, who, again, numerous accusations, was found liable for sexual abuse, and now he's picked RFK to be health secretary. What are we going to learn? What's going to come out over the next few years about his, dark secrets? He has skeletons in his closet. So I want to turn now to some of his absolutely insane beliefs. So let's get straight to it. So you've got the autism connected to vaccines. So we've already done that one. And then we have falsely called the coronavirus vaccine the deadliest vaccine ever made. Again, conspiracy theory, hyperbole based on nothing. Kennedy again, this is a right-wing grift. Kennedy promotes raw milk, stem cells, and other controversial or debunked medical treatments. There's a reason milk is pasteurized. Raw milk is unsafe to consume, and the Food and Drug Administration and the CDC have strongly advised against consuming it because it can contain dangerous bacteria such as Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria. It also contains viruses including the N5N1 bird flu virus that is causing an outbreak in dairy cattle and has sickened at least 46 people in the United States. Unpasteurized milk from infected cows can contain high levels of infectious H5N1 virus. Stem cells, which have shown great promise for potential medical treatments, have also spawned a cottage industry of clinics marketing unproven treatments, which some have blinded patients. Paul Knopfler, a professor of cell biology and human anatomy at the University of California at Davis, who tracks questionable stem cell treatments, told the Post he is concerned Kennedy could become an ally of unproven stem cell clinics that have popped up across the United States, potentially exerting pressure on the FDA to back and enforcement actions and allow therapies that are not ready for clinical trial. Kennedy argues government employees have interest in mass poisoning the American public. Again, let's not get into that. Kennedy has falsely linked antidepressants to mass shootings. Kennedy incorrectly suggests AIDS may have not been caused by HIV. Kennedy has repeatedly and falsely suggested that the human immunodeficiency virus is not the cause of acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. The discovery of the connection between HIV and AIDS garnered a Nobel Prize in 2008 and is established science. They were doing phony, crooked studies to develop a cure that killed people without really being able to understand what HIV was, and pumping up fear about it constantly, not really understanding whether it was causing AIDS, Kennedy said in an interview last summer with New York Magazine. In his 2021 book, The Real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the Global War on Democracy and Public Health, Kennedy wrote that he takes no position on whether HIV caused AIDS, then dedicated many pages to casting doubt on the science. So again, he doesn't care about the science. It's conspiracy theory. Lack of evidence means there's something to hide. Again, and it's distrust in public institutions. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to jump onto conspiracy theories. I understand the concerns, but you need evidence. Lack of evidence is not evidence. Kennedy falsely argues children's gender identity can be impacted by water. This is insane. Kennedy has repeatedly argued that chemicals in the water are changing children's sexuality and gender identity. I just want to pursue this one question on these, the other endocrine disruptors, because our children now, we're seeing these impacts that people suspect are very different than in ages past about sexual identification among children and sexual confusion. Gender confusion, he said on his podcast in 2022, according to CNN. Experts say there's no scientific evidence to back up Kennedy's claims, which have also been spread by conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, a legitimate source there. That's just leaning into the fear that hormones are going to make our kids gay or transgender. It's a very old conspiracy theory, said David Gorski, a Wayne State University professor of surgery and oncology and managing editor of Science Based Medicine, which debunks misinformation in medicine that has no basis in evidence. Kennedy has falsely touted ivermectin and hydrochloroquine as effective COVID treatments. I don't think I need to go over that. It's obviously just complete conspiracy theory based in no evidence. Kennedy argued that COVID-19 was ethnically targeted to spare Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people. Again, just absolutely, just no evidence, just pure speculation. I mean, how do you deal with this? How do you, it's not based in reality. Kennedy claims 5G high speed wireless network is used to control our behavior. This is the fact that this man has been selected for health secretary is absolutely insane. I mean, there's going to be limits to what he can do. He wants to cut parts of the health, like FDA. What the hell is he going to do? It's insane. So let's finish on this. Kennedy has claimed that 5G high speed wireless network service is being used to harvest our data and control our behavior. He claims echo long running conspiracy theories that 5G technology causes harmful effects on health. During the pandemic, governments in the United Kingdom and the United States issued assurances that technology was not fueling the coronavirus. Experts have dismissed fears of detrimental health effects, pointing out the technology is no different than existing networks. So, to get a sense of who the man is, he's conspiracy brained, he has a sexual allegation against him, which he didn't deny early on, and then he did deny, saying it was garbage. He's got skeletons in his closet, he's no church boy, and he will have massive influence if he's voted in. That remains to be seen on the health of the American people, the acceptance of this, because there is a huge community. We've seen, especially since COVID, the real mistrust in public institutions, especially pharmaceutical industries. Russell Brand is pushing this massively, and a lot of far-right conspiracy grifters who, again, it's all conspiracy theory. It's all paranoia. And it is a paranoia thing. It's paranoia that the government, first of all, that there's control, that actually governments have control. Yeah, they have control. But we know where the control comes from. It does come from the billionaire class, it comes from the ruling class. And we know exactly what they're doing. But the fact you have to make a conspiracy out of it and say, oh, they're hiding it. No, we know exactly what they're doing. They're trying to make money. The pharmaceutical company's objective is to make money. They don't necessarily care about health. Obviously, vaccines have been tested. There are problems with studies. Often, there's not enough studies to verify their efficacy. But the idea that these conspiracies about HIV, about 5G, about autism and vaccines, there's no evidence. So comment below, is this going to enable more conspiracies? Is it going to enable this kind of conspiracy-brained ideology to, proliferate and kind of get more mainstream? I mean, it's pretty mainstream with Facebook, but will it get worse? Comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.